Welcome to Cape Town, Africa's best destination in the world. Come with me on this amazing journey as we explore the city and everything it has to offer. Like this amazing view. One of the biggest reasons why I moved from London, cold, depressing, broken Britain, to a place like Cape Town is because of the cost of living. It is way more affordable than in London, and I feel a sense of peace. In London, I didn't feel happy. It felt like I was always trapped, always had a sense of anxiety because of bills, because of costs, because of the weather. In Cape Town, I don't feel that way. I feel truly at home, and it's one of the biggest reasons why I would say to come to Cape Town. And just to show you how much you're saving by moving to Cape Town, let me show you the cost of living comparison with London in the UK versus Cape Town, South Africa. A one-bedroom in prime central London is going to cost you $2,000 a month, whereas in Cape Town, a one-bedroom in a really nice area only costs you £700, which means you're saving £1,300 a month. What about cleaners? A cleaner in London will cost you £300 a month, whereas in Cape Town, that could be £100 a month or even less. Groceries in London cost you £500 a month, depending on where you buy, whereas in Cape Town, you can cut that in half. And adding up all your lifestyle expenses like gym, eating out, and transport, in London, that's going to cost you £400 a month, whereas in Cape Town, that's only $150. Which means that your total monthly expenditure in a place like London is, on average, £3,200 a month. Whereas when you move to a place like Cape Town, you can get that down to £1,200 a month, which means you're saving £2,000 per month. And over a course of a year, you've just saved £24,000. So one of the biggest advantages of living in South Africa is a concept I call geographic arbitrage. And what this means is basically earning in a stronger currency, like the pound, the dollar, the euro, and transacting in a weaker currency, which is the rand. It gives you an affordable lifestyle at the fraction of a cost than what it would cost you living in a place like London, which doesn't get you anywhere. Cape Town is a city located in the southernmost tip of Africa. It lies at the convergence between two major ocean currents, the cold Benguela current from the Atlantic and the warm Angulus current from the Indian Ocean. And its position creates an interesting climate, biodiversity, and trade relevance. It's also the closest major African city to Antarctica, making it a key southern hemisphere node for global research, logistics, and shipping routes. And here's where it gets even better, right? Because the weather here, you wouldn't believe me if I told you that right now is winter. This is winter. This is equivalent of what summer would be like in London, minus the lovely views, of course. I mean, it's insane. Winters here are at a nice climate. It can get a bit cold, but it's nothing in comparison to a London winter. Now let's address the safety. Now, when I first moved to South Africa, everyone told me not to go there because it's too unsafe. And to some extent, they're kind of right. Cape Town, on average, has a high crime rate, as does many other Western cities. But still, it's something you want to be cautious of. Now, if you go and research the data on the crime rate in a place like Cape Town or South Africa more broadly, you're going to hear that South Africa is so unsafe and you should never go there. Now, as someone who's lived here for 2 years, it's nowhere near as bad as they make it to seem. Now, let's look at the crime rate of a place like Cape Town. Now, when you look at the stats, the crime rate of a place like Cape Town, they look at the entire city. So that includes places that you're never going to go to, like the Cape Flats, or in the townships, which expats or tourists just never go to. Whereas when you compare it to the safer neighborhoods in Cape Town, the crime rates are much lower. Westerners travel there all the time. Wealthy people live there. And if you are ever planning to visit or move to Cape Town, here are a few places that you want to check out. So welcome to the Atlantic Seaboard, which is the beginning of the Millionaire's Mile, which is a really long promenade that stretches all the way out to Camps Bay and Clifton. Now, right in front of me, we've got this gorgeous view of the Atlantic Ocean. The Atlantic Seaboard is the place in Cape Town that everyone dreams of, with the ocean on one side and those beautiful Table Mountains and that picturesque sunset that looks like it was taken out of a movie scene. which is why the Atlantic seaboard is also amongst the safest areas in Cape Town if you plan to visit, which is why a lot of nomads, tourists and expats always go there. So whether you're walking on the promenade, grabbing a coffee, or just chilling by the beach, you're not going to get the same worry and anxiety compared to the other parts of South Africa. When it comes to accommodation, you have lots of options. Whether you want to go all out and get one of those luxury villas that look like they're from LA and the Hollywood Hills in a place like Clifton or Camps Bay, or you're just a regular person, want something affordable, you can go and stay in Greenpoint or Sea Point. You can find affordable rentals at a fraction of Western costs. Now, usually when the Western media portrays Africa, especially in those Natural Geographic documentaries, they'll show it being super underdeveloped and everyone's poor and people live in mud huts. And as someone who's lived in Africa for 2 years, I can say confidently that South Africa has the easiest transition from a westernized environment. So if you're coming from a place like London, from a place like New York or Sydney, it's the easiest transition because you have all the luxury, sometimes even more, in a place like Cape Town. So I know in London we have something called Waitrose or M&S. The equivalent is Woolworths. In London we have Westfield. In Cape Town you have the V&A waterfront. Living in South Africa in general feels closer to the UK or the US more than what you might think. So what would you say your experience has been like? You know, obviously you've lived in Nigeria and you've lived here. Like, how do you feel here?
Actually, here is a very nice space for creativity. You know, creative space, you know, painting, art. I think they actually like art in this South Africa. Because exploring Cape Town, I've been to places where, you know, the wall are just full of paintings. I've been to museums, I've been to galleries. So there's something about this space. You know, I don't know if you can feel it.
You can feel it when you're here.
It's spiritual.
Yeah. One other thing I've also noticed is that this is a very active city. You always see people running on the promenades, people use gyms, people like to be very fit here, which is something that's really important because, you know, health is wealth. Now, just because Cape Town is more affordable than the West does not mean it's free. A lot of people come here thinking that just because it's Africa, it's going to be really cheap. And Cape Town is one of the more expensive, in fact, the most expensive areas in the whole of South Africa. And if you don't have a concrete plan, if you plan to live here as a nomad or expat, it's very easy to burn through all your savings. So I recommend to have a remote source of income, like an online business, that allows you to travel and make sure it's sustainable so you can actually live here full time. Now, if you want to move here as a nomad or expat, in South Africa, you get 6 months tax-free in most cases, which means you can live anywhere you want in the world or anywhere in Africa and pay no taxes. Immigration has also improved significantly since I first arrived here. And if you have a Western passport from UK or the US, you get 90 days on arrival and you can extend your tourist visa for another 90 days. Cape Town also has a nomad visa if you plan to live here full time, and they also have a retirement visa if you have passive income. So now I'm going to be answering some frequently asked questions that I always get asked about Cape Town and moving to South Africa. So the first question is there still power problems? So when I first arrived in South Africa, they had an issue with what's called load shedding. And load shedding is basically these rolling blackouts that happen at scheduled times. Usually you'd have a UPS device, which is like a power bank you connect into your Wi-Fi router, so at least you can connect to the Wi-Fi whilst the power goes out for usually 1 or 2 hours, and obviously still use the internet. Now, up until very recently, load shedding has been abolished by Eskom. However, the future is still very uncertain. So as of right now in 2025 recording this, there are no problems with load shedding. But even when there is load shedding, at least you have an app on your phone so you know when it's coming. But not going to be random blackouts like in other parts of Africa where the power just goes out and you can't even plan for it. At least they give you some notice in advance. But for now, we're all good with the power situation. Next question is, how easy is it to find accommodation? So if you're looking to live here longer term, accommodation can be a little bit tricky. So usually if you're using Property 24, they're going to want to have 12-month leases, which can be a little bit difficult if you're planning to stay here for maybe 6 months or maybe periodically. So what I recommend is go to Airbnb first and tell them you're going to go for a long-term stay. Usually they can negotiate the rental rate down if you can promise that you're going to stay there for a longer period of time. Because obviously Airbnb is going to make more money if they have longer term tenants. Now, if you are looking to stay here long term, like 6 months or 12 months, then you can use Property 24. You can get long-term rentals. Usually it's 1 month worth of rent for the deposit, and then the first month of rent. So you're paying 2 checks up front for an unfurnished unit. And if you're going for a furnished unit, it's going to be 2 months worth of rent deposit and the first month up front. So basically 3 checks. In addition, in most cases, unless you're going to a private landlord, you are going to need a South African bank account in order for them to take the direct debit order. Okay, so what about the transport systems in Cape Town? So there isn't really a reliable transport system here in South Africa, so I'll stick with Ubers or Bolt. Bolt is another version of Uber, just a little bit cheaper. But the good news is it's extremely affordable. So going from Sea Point to V&A Waterfront, which is about 5 kilometers, it's only going to cost you about $3 to $4. A trip from Sea Point to Camps Bay, around 7 kilometers, is going to cost you about $4 to $5. And even longer rides, like going from the airport to Sea Point, where you're probably going to be staying, is only going to cost about $15, which is way cheaper than Oyster or the TfL back in London, or if you're from New York using the MTA system. So you're basically paying for the same price that you'd get in London for Oyster and TfL, but for a private transport. Now, the next concern if you're a nomad or expat is how do you manage your healthcare? Because obviously in London, where I'm from, we have the NHS system, which is pretty useless anyway, but at least we have free healthcare in the UK, in the USA. I'm pretty sure you have another version of that. But if you move to a place like South Africa, you're probably going to need to have private healthcare, which is better for you anyway because you're going to get served a lot faster and you skip all of the queues and waiting periods that you would with public healthcare. But the good news is the healthcare systems are really affordable. And hospitals like Netcare or Mediclinic are world-class and are much cheaper than UK or US rates. Even when it comes to the education system, so if you have a family trying to move here, where are you going to school your kids? Now, South Africa has world-class education systems and are on par with British, American and IB curriculum standards. And the final question is around banking. So if you're a nomad or an expat who's trying to live here long term, you are going to need a South African local bank for making rental or local payments. Some vendors only accept EFT transfers, so you are going to need to have a local bank for that. Now in South Africa, there are 3 banks. You can use Standard Bank, Absa or FNB, but you are going to need to have a long-term visa for that. And if you are looking to move to South Africa, you can click the first link in the description below. So guys, I really hope you did enjoy that video about Cape Town, South Africa. If you did, please leave a massive thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I create content on escaping the West, documenting my journey leaving UK, and how I'm building wealth as a nomad and expat.